Okay, recording has started. देखिए, so far as medical astrology is concerned, there is a correlation between the zodiac and the zones of the body. Okay, what happens is that at birth, all the impressions of the celestial zodiac are made at different levels in the body. Okay, what happens at the time of birth? Can you tell me? Why is your time of birth so important to medical astrology or
मैम वो पूरा
to the organs of your body or for your health? Why?
पंचांग भी होता है. व्हाट इज द बर्थ टाइम इज योर होल पंचांग लाइफ जर्नी. सन की पोजीशन एंड द ईस्टर्न होराइजन आल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
Okay, see, the celestial zodiac is what we call the macrocosm, yeah, macrocosmos, and it reflects in the microcosm. The human race, like other species, or the human species, like other species, reflects the macrocosmic power of the zodiac. So, through the association of the zodiac with the microcosm of human species or humanity, astrology relates the effects of one in terms of the other, meaning the celestial zodiac and our species are connected through the energy of the zodiac, and even vice versa. Now, the areas of the body which correspond to the celestial zodiac. So, this is very common information. You can find it anywhere, but we need to discuss this briefly nonetheless. So, Aries corresponds to your head, Taurus corresponds to your neck, throat, Gemini corresponds to your shoulders, arms, and lungs. Cancer corresponds to your chest, your breasts. Leo corresponds to your, we are talking about the organs only. So, Leo corresponds to your heart and your back. Virgo corresponds to your abdomen and the umbilical region of the body. Scorpio signifies your genitals. Sagittarius signifies your thighs, your hips, very important for physical movement. Capricorn signifies the knees. Aquarius corresponds to your ankles and calves. And of course, the last sign in the zodiac, Pisces, represents your feet and toes. Now, this is the body of the Kal Purush. Okay. This is how the celestial zodiac corresponds to the body of the Kalpurush. So, if you notice closely, the governance of these zones follows the Rashi progression of the zodiac, right? So, we start with the head and we conclude with the feet of the Kalpurush. But it's a circular arrangement because it's a 360-degree zodiac. Now, planets, or what we call planetary bodies, they travel through the signs of the zodiac, but they are always susceptible to changes and disturbances. And that is what is replicated, that disturbance or change as planetary bodies travel through the zodiac. I mean, the signs of the zodiac are reflected as disturbances in the corresponding human equivalent, meaning if there is disturbance in a planetary body as it travels through the zodiac, it will reflect as a disturbance in the corresponding body parts. Is that understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So every planet is connected with some divisions of the zodiac. So, Sun corresponds with Leo, Moon corresponds with Cancer through their governance, so on and so forth. Mercury corresponds with Gemini, Virgo, Venus with Libra, Taurus, Mars corresponds to Aries and Scorpio, Jupiter will correspond with Sagittarius, Saturn with Capricorn, and this is important, Uranus, Aquarius, and Neptune correspond with Pisces. Now, these are outer planets. Therefore, you will see that they correspond with that Rashi of the zodiac from which we analyze the exit points of the Kalpurush. Okay. Now, every Rashi has very specific attributes. Now, for example, let's say Mars is in Aries at the time of the birth. One snapshot prediction you can make is regarding the temperament of the person. What do you think? What will be the temperament of the person who has
Very
Mars in Aries?
short-tempered.
Okay.
Hot-headed.
Hmm. Okay. Fine.
Um,
Right.
yeah, aggressive, hot-headed, will head into problems
Yeah.
head first.
Mars in Aries will correspond to rush of blood to the brain. Mars is blood, Mars is activity, Aries is your head, represents your brain. So here, for this native with Mars in Aries, there will be rush of blood to the brain, which will correspond to a highly excitable temperament. This is how the quality of the planet sitting in a particular division of the zodiac is affecting the temperament of the person. Now, there is a flip side with this placement. When you have Mars in Aries, it usually, not necessarily, of course, there are other factors that need to be reckoned for making a conclusive prediction. But with Mars in Aries, it shows a hyperactive brain because all the active energy is directed towards the brain. Now, what kind of temperament can you predict for a person with Mercury in Aries?
Ma'am, reactive.
Reactive to what?
Ma'am, there's a difference between reactive and responsive. So, um, as we say, Mercury is very reactive in nature when it comes to metals. So, I am guessing it. Maybe it's with the planet as well.
What is the Mool Trikon of Mercury?
Virgo, logic oriented,
Hmm.
calculative.
If you travel 8 houses from the Mool Trikon of Mercury, where will you reach? Hanji, yes,
Aries.
where will you reach? Aries. This is a classic 6-8 frequency. 1668. However, we are looking at the Mool Trikon governor of Virgo, that is Mercury, traveling to the first Rashi, the starting point of the Kalpurush, Mercury in Aries. This will predispose the native to disease of the head because Virgo rules diseases, all diseases, in the nativity of Kalpurush. Mercury in Aries in the chart of Kalpurush will predispose the native to diseases of the head. Mercury is the original Ganati Karak. Mercury, see, the significator of 6, 8, and 12 is Saturn. But the Mool Trikon of diseases has to be located in Virgo. And its ruler is Mercury. So if you are asked to make a snapshot prediction for Mercury in Aries, you can make this prediction about the native being predisposed to diseases of the head. Now, Aries represents your head as we just discussed, and it's an active and reactive Rashi. Please note this down. It's an active and reactive Rashi. Quickest to act and react, especially upon that portion of the anatomy, which is the head. Now, roughly, we attribute the brain, the skull, and the face to Aries. But Aries is the powerhouse where energy is generated. Energy. Wherever Aries falls in your chart represents energy. The powerhouse of your chart is signified by Aries. Okay,
Ma'am, can it be mitochondria as well, metabolism as well?
we'll come to that later.
Okay, ma'am.
Mitochondria has sub significators. Okay, mitochondria is not an organ, not an external organ. Okay, so Aries typically signifies energy. Where do you have latent energy? Where you will notice hyperactivity, restlessness. Why? Because there is hyperactivity as much as changeability. Now, every Rashi has a nature. We have discussed the bodily significators, the physical significators, but every Rashi has a nature. Aries is hot because it is exposed to the eastern horizon in the chart of the Kalpurush, right? Where the power of sun becomes very powerful in deciding the nature of the Rashi. Obviously, it will be arid, dry, and arid because of the constant reception of the heat of the sun. And most importantly, how Aries becomes important for fighting off infections in your body. Aries is where you will notice maximum inflammatory power in the chart of the Kalpurush. If you have to locate inflammation Rashi wise, you will look at Aries. So the cranial bones and the bones in your face, Rashi significator is Aries. Okay? Now, this is the important part. If Aries is afflicted, if Aries is afflicted, we can predict diseases like epilepsy, constant headaches, predisposition to headaches, and what we call eruptive maladies, eruptive diseases, which affect the head, the bones of the face, vertigo, neuralgia, encephalitis, and cerebral issues. I repeat, affliction in Aries will predispose a native to epilepsy, cerebral problems, encephalitis, vertigo, diseases of the head. So much for Aries. Moving on to Taurus. See, Taurus is basically the sign through which you can determine the power of endurance of the native. See, Aries is, just give me a second, just a second. Okay. So the neck, throat, your ears, tonsils, esophagus, the thyroid gland, vocal cords, these are signified by Taurus. The base of the brain, the base of the brain, the cerebellum. The cerebellum and the base of the brain are signified by Taurus. The primary bones signified by Taurus are your cervical vertebrate. I will give you the list of the corresponding organs because this is a long list. Jugular veins, the veins in your thyroid gland. Again, they are signified by Taurus. When Taurus is afflicted, throat problems, goiter, laryngitis, all kinds of abscesses, and apoplexy. These are seen from afflicted Taurus. Now, Gemini, we are commonly told that Gemini represents communication. Actually, Gemini represents dispersion in the body. any kind of dispersion. Therefore, it corresponds to the hands, the nerves, and the lungs. Geminians, obviously, then they will become susceptible to diseases of the nerves. Externally, Gemini rules your shoulders, your arms and hands, and fingers. Now, a very important function that has to be seen through Gemini is the capacity of oxygenation in the blood. Oxygen is signified by Jupiter, but oxygenation in the blood is the function of Gemini, the third house. Capillaries are also associated with Gemini. The upper ribs, carpal bones, scapula, and clavicle are represented by Gemini. When Gemini is afflicted, whenever Gemini is afflicted, the diseases that will afflict the native are bronchitis, arms related diseases, nervous disorders, as we discussed, pulmonary disorders. Moving on. Cancer signifies the power to metamorphose. Cancer is a metamorphic Rashi. But because it travels 12th from the Mool Trikona of Leo, which signifies vitality, Cancer Rashi is basically where your vitality is compromised. And this is why Mars gets debilitated in Cancer. Because as a Rashi, Cancer is not conducive for the energy of Mars. Because Cancer compromises vitality. It does not carry vitality. So Cancer represents, like we discussed, the chest cavity, the breasts, the thorax, pancreas, and the womb. Among muscles, it rules diaphragm. When Cancer is afflicted, you can very well study digestive problems, cough, dropsy, and even cancer, meaning the disease cancer. Leo represents the heart of the Kalpurush, heart of the organism of Kalpurush. Leo is the seat of vitality. Yeah, I'll just be back in a second. I'll just be back in 2 minutes. Just give me a. Okay. Meanwhile, please go over your notes. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Just a second.
Okay, ma'am.
यीशु चुप हो जाओ नहीं तो मैं खींच के लगाऊंगी. Okay. So Leo, as we discussed, is the seat of vitality. Why is it the seat of vitality? Yeah. Why is Leo the seat of vitality?
It corresponds to digestive enzymes and digestive fire.
Simple. It's the Mool Trikon of Sun. Life-giving
Yes.
power of the zodiac. vests in the sun. Therefore, Leo is the seat of vitality, life forces. Leo also represents generational diseases. If you want to look at generational diseases, they will come from Leo and Sun. The spinal cord is signified by the Sun. Now, affliction in Leo is serious. If the Rashi, which is the seat of vitality, gets afflicted, immunity gets compromised. Bouncing back to life or bouncing back from diseases, recuperating from diseases becomes difficult. So, heart diseases of various kinds, irregular heartbeat, palpitation, fevers, problems in your spinal cord, and diseases like aneurysm, angina pectoris, these can be seen from afflicted Leo. Now, moving on to the Mool Trikon of Mercury Virgo. This is the Rashi which signifies diseases in general. Now, see, Virgo is a barren Rashi. It is associated with your bowel, the duodenum, and jejunum, and also the ileum. It is responsible for absorption and assimilation in the body. If you have to look at the diet of a person, if you have to recommend or make recommendations, dietary recommendations to someone, look at look at Virgo. Most importantly, Virgo represents the sympathetic nervous system. And the intestinal veins. The umbilical veins, the intestinal veins. Affliction in Virgo intestinal problems, constipation, peritonitis, colic diseases. Okay. Now, this is something very important since Virgo is the Mool Trikon of Mercury. See, Mercury represents the domain or the realms of the non-living. If Jupiter is Jeev Karak, you know that 180 degrees from both the Rashis of Jupiter, that is Sagittarius and Pisces, lie the Rashis of Mercury. So, the common conclusion that can be drawn from this fact is that if Jupiter is Jiva Karak, Mercury is Ajiva Karak. Mercury has a very strong connection with the energy of death. And people from your lineage who have departed from this world. Mercury is the most karmic planet. Most karmic. More than Saturn, more than Rahu Ketu. See, every planet is karmic, but Mercury is the most karmic among them. Mercury shows multiplicity, conflict, rift, disease. Mercury is what puts you, or rather takes away the ease from your life. Disturbance. The key word is imbalance. Mercury is what throws you off balance. Not Rahu Ketu. Rahu Ketu are just psychic energies. And of course, there are intersection points in the orbits between the sun and the moon. But Mercury represents the element of imbalance. Therefore, Mercury is the natural significator of diseases, any disease. Venus, which signifies medicine and healing, healing through medicine, as you know, debilitates in Virgo. Why? See, Mercury, like we just discussed, it's a barren Rashi. And it is the seat of imbalance. So when the significator of balance, Venus, comes here, it is not an easy position for Venus. All the accumulated stress, accumulated imbalance in the body and mind. Why body and mind? See, from the Lagna, Mercury's Mool Trikon falls in the 6th house. And from the 4th house, Mercury's Mool Trikon falls in the 3rd house. So both ways it's the frequency of Mercury, 3rd house frequency and 6th house frequency. Any combination, conjunction between Moon Mercury, Mars Mercury, Mars being the ruler of your 1st house, Mars and Mercury together, again, now your bloodline has very karmic issues to resolve because Mars is your bloodline. Mercury shows karmic debts. So, whichever planets it sits with will be saddled with heavy karmic debts, especially the debts which have been transferred from the deceased ancestors. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I had a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so abhi, since Mercury is itself carries a lot of debt and karma, so in a way, combustion would be good for Mercury, ना? Because उसमें burn हो जाता है सारा.
Okay. See, medically, from the point of view of medical astrology, combustion will show different outcomes as compared to non-medical aspects. Combustion is actually the sun taking away the power of the planet. Okay. Whenever
Hmm.
sun combusts a planet, it is not punishment. Retrogression is punishment. Combustion is not punishment. Combustion is burning away of some karmas of that planet. Mercury is very commonly combusted. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, this is a double edged sword. When Mercury is combusted, obviously it is carrying some energy of sun. It is infused with the energy of sun. So, sun's intelligence will now guide Mercury. It is not going to be easy experientially. What is helping you karmically, because sun is combusting Mercury, will not be experienced very comfortably on the physical plane. Why? Because sun's energy or sun's heat will cause a burning effect because sun is too close to the planet. So
Hmm.
whenever a planet gets combusted, remember one thing, like we just discussed, sun shows generational power. Sun signifies generations. So whichever planet gets combusted gets saddled with generational problems. को मुफ्त में सन आपको नहीं बर्न कर रहा कुछ यहाँ पे. Okay. Now sun acts in ways which may not necessarily be liked by a planet. सन को पनिश करना है प्यूरिफिकेशन के लिए, लेकिन वो प्यूरिफिकेशन का प्रोसेस वीनस जैसा प्लेजेंट नहीं होता है कि धीरे धीरे ठंडा ठंडा अच्छा लग रहा है, नहीं. दैट इज व्हाई वीनस has serious problems when it goes to Leo, because it is getting burnt by the Rashi Lord. But when a planet gets combusted, its experience in the material or physical realms becomes or gets irritated. Combustion causes irritation, uneasiness. in a greh. If you have combusted moon, the person is highly irritable, mood swings, violent mood swings. Okay. But the person is not morally corrupted. There is a difference. Rahu Ketu can cause imbalances which are leading to corruption of the mind if they are afflicting the moon. But that is not what happens when the same moon is combusted by the sun. तो combustion जो है वो फिनोमिनन है जहां पे सूर्य अपनी it is like Donald Trump. I'll invade your territory. Therefore, I will compromise your sovereignty. It's a loose example, but just for ease of explanation. तो जो
Got it.
कंबस्टेड प्लैनेट की फ्री विल होती है ना, उसकी जो एजेंसी होती है वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो जाती है. व्हाई? बिकॉज सी नाउ द किंग इज टेकिंग अवे योर पावर्स. कंबस्टेड मर्क्यूरी किसी भी इंसान का बचपन खराब कर सकता है. मर्क्यूरी इज सिग्निफिकेटर ऑफ चाइल्डहुड, ऑल द फन एंड मर्थ ऑफ चाइल्डहुड. वो कंबस्टेड मर्क्यूरी वाले का अक्सर आपको बहुत ही रिस्ट्रिक्टेड चाइल्डहुड मिलेगा एंड domination by the father. The father will tend to shut up the child. So through combusted mercury, you can look at psychological problems. Okay?
Okay.
But it depends on the degree of combustion. If it's a very low level of combustion, problem will leave with time. Okay, combustion भी degrees पे होता है, तो वो आपको देखना पड़ेगा. Now Libra represents filtration and distillation. So it rules the lumbar region and your kidneys. Primarily, it governs lumbar region and kidneys. Now you know what the kidneys do. They distill the urine into the renal pelvis region. Whenever Libra is afflicted, whenever Libra gets afflicted, nephritis, renal diseases, obviously, and diseases of the urinary tract. But most importantly, Venus signifies internal strength. आपके अंदर, see, I'm not talking about immunity. Immunity is different. Internal strength. Okay, let me give you an example. You must have seen ladies who start facing many health issues around the period of the onset of perimenopause,
Mm. Correct.
right?
Yes. Correct.
Where is Kushi? Just a second. So what happens is that when the hormonal cycle after a certain age, Venus, as you know, is a significator of hormones, hormone health, and the endocrine system. So when Libra is afflicted, and Libra is the mool trikon of Venus. You can easily predict decay in internal strength, receding internal strength, जो आपके हॉर्मोन्स आपके वेलबींग के लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल हैं, वो लिब्रा के अफ्लिक्शन से कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो जाता है उनके फंक्शन. सो अफ्लिक्टेड लिब्रा shows compromised hormone health. Scorpio represents procreation, reproductive health, as well as destruction of life processes. Procreation, reproduction, and destruction of life processes. Therefore, its domain is the generative organs. Scorpio lords over generative organs. Now, it signifies your excretory system, the prostate, the groins, the gall, the rectum, the bladder, the ureters, the mesocolon, and the mesorectum. Now you have to distinguish between diseases caused by affliction of Libra and diseases caused by Scorpio. When you look at suppression of urine is caused by, or rather seen through the affliction of Libra. But retention of urine is seen from Scorpio. But when urine is retained in the bladder, that is affliction in Scorpio. Okay. So people who are vulnerable to stones, stone formation, piles, fistulas, gonorrhea, leukorrhea, syphilis, urethritis, hemorrhoids, affliction of Scorpio. Now, Sagittarius is the significator of transference, movement from one place to another.
Ma'am, one small doubt.
Yeah.
Uh, what about the uterus and the जो follicles वगैरह होते हैं, like the ovaries? Yes. Those also come under Scorpio, or is the uterus under Cancer?
See, so far as ovaries are concerned, reproductive health is seen from Scorpio. Okay, reproductive health, the capacity to reproduce. But so far as ovaries are concerned, only ovaries. आप मुझे बताइए, आपको क्या लगता है कौन सी प्लेनेट होगी, होनी चाहिए?
लिब्रा, वीनस का होगा शायद ऐसा।
Planetary significator of ovaries is moon.
हाँ, it works in cycles. Right.
Planetary significator of ovaries is moon. Okay.
Okay.
The womb, the womb of the mother, any woman, is governed by the sixth house. Ovaries, house wise, are governed by the seventh house. Yes, your question is right. But the planetary significator of ovaries is moon.
Okay.
Bhava significator is seventh house. Menstrual cycle is jointly governed by Venus, Moon, and Mars. Okay. So this is a good question. See, Venus controls, there is a difference. Venus controls your reproductive organs and your overall urinary parts. But the strength of the reproductive system, whether a lady can bear children or not, what is the quotient of her reproductive health, that is seen from Scorpio. ठीक है?
Yes, ma'am.
क्योंकि देखिए कंसेप्शन के लिए आपको हॉर्मोन्स भी देखने पड़ेंगे ना, तो वहां पे वीनस आ जाता है.
Correct.
ओके.
So any disease associated like PCOD, PCOS, which are more hormone related, they will be more
वीनस.
Venus moon affliction
यस.
than
यस.
Scorpio. Okay. Got it.
यस. 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 डेफिनेटली. ओके. सो Sagittarius represents the locomotor muscles of your thighs and hips. It represents the sacral bones, the femur bones, and the coccygeal and ilium bones. Has Khushi left? Okay, I think so. Whenever Sagittarius is afflicted, you will come across problems like sciatica, rheumatism, paralysis, which disables movement, dislocation of joints, hips, and even gout. Capricorn shows diseases that are caused by inhibition, suppression of emotions. Basically, Capricorn represents all kinds of limitations. Now, there is, again, Capricorn is a barren sign, cold, dry, barren. The joints are ruled by Capricorn. particularly the joints of the knees. Now, this is very interesting. Affliction in Capricorn can actually show skin diseases, articular rheumatism, gout, urticaria, eczema, leprosy, pruritus. Aquarius regulates all elimination from the body of primarily acids and gases, carbonic acids, carbonic acid and gases, and its byproducts. It rules the circulatory system, the lower leg, your calves and ankles, as we discussed earlier. Any affliction in Aquarius will lead to fractures of, your rather spraining of ankles or swollen ankles, swollen joints, cramps, nervous diseases, blood poisoning, anemia. Pisces, again, it's a cold blooded sign and it produces mucus and phlegm. However, the Rashi itself is humid. Okay, it represents the lymphatic system. The feet and toes are governed by Pisces. Now, affliction in Pisces shows excess mucus, disposition to gonorrhea, feet deformities, and affliction in Pisces can predispose a person to alcoholism. Okay, this is important. If you have to look at alcoholism, look for affliction in Pisces.
Okay.
Okay.
Ma'am, one more like mistake.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
does it predispose specifically to alcoholism, or is it like some sort of drug addiction can be there?
No, not drug addiction, alcoholism.
Okay. All right.
Alcohol
वो तो
only.
escapism का साइन है ना, इसीलिए I asked कि मतलब they can take an.
देखो यहाँ पे ना अ, आपको एक चीज का ध्यान रखना होगा. राशि भाव एंड प्लैनेटरी सिग्निफिकेटर्स डिफर फ्रॉम ईच अदर. Let's say Pisces is afflicted, okay? But Jupiter is aspecting Pisces, or Sun, or any planet which carries sattvic qualities is aspecting Pisces. Then it will be difficult for the person to become an alcoholic, even if he drinks alcohol. Aspects and conjunctions will change the predisposition of the person. Let me give you an example. If you want to look at a person who likes alcohol, okay, liking for alcohol, Rahu in Pisces. But Rahu in Pisces, let's say Rahu sits with Jupiter and Sun. अब यहाँ पे ये दोनों इसको एडिक्शन की तरफ नहीं जाने देंगे, बट whenever this person goes out, उसका प्रेफरेंस होगा कि हाँ, आई वांट अल्कोहल. He may not be an alcoholic, as in there is no compulsion to have alcohol, but this person will have a preference because उसको एक लत नहीं है, लेकिन उसका शौक है.
Right.
Like people who can control. Okay. But if Rahu, a planet like Rahu, is not saved by the combined forces of Jupiter, Sun, or Mars, then yes, then this is a difficult situation. Then the person, especially suppose Saturn is sitting here in Pisces, then this person will be too weak to resist addiction. ठीक है, क्योंकि सैटर्न आपको डिसिप्लिन नहीं देता. There are people who can drink in a disciplined manner. Who are those people? Where
Right.
Saturn and Rahu are controlled by Sun or Jupiter. Okay, these planets will not allow you to waver in the wrong direction. That is all. So when you are making a prediction, you have to bear in mind the differences in the bhava, rashi, and planetary significators. This is where it becomes a bit tricky also. Okay. So anyhow, we need to keep this in mind. So let's, because Khushi ji is not here, let's conclude today's class.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Ma'am, one nice point that I found is
Yeah.
Aquarius is ruling the calves, na? And the
Yes.
gastrocnemius muscle that is there, na? It is also called as
Yes.
the second heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
In the medical, like, and then there it is called a second heart because when you walk, it pumps the blood up. Or Leo Aquarius opposite to each other. So like it's like a nice
Yes.
correlation there.
Yes. 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 100%. That is the correlation. Very true. So, see, as a doctor, you need to be very astute with afflictions. अफ्लिक्शन नहीं है तो फिर आपका कोई काम ही नहीं है ना. लेकिन अगर अफ्लिक्शन है तो आपको बहुत पैनी नजर रखनी पड़ती है कि अच्छा अगर अफ्लिक्शन आ गया, अब कहीं ना कहीं तो अफ्लिक्शन आएगा ही. नोबडी कैन एस्केप अफ्लिक्शंस. So you have to keep an eye on afflictions in Rashis and affliction in Bhavas, because Bhava afflictions are more difficult to escape. भाव जो होता है ना, फिक्स्ड रिजल्ट दे रहा है. राशि तो अपने एनवायरनमेंट का रिजल्ट दे रही है, लेकिन भाव आपको फिक्स्ड रिजल्ट दे रहा है. और प्लैनेट जो है उसका मूवमेंट और वो कौन सा चर कारक है, अगर आप ये सब थोड़ा फाइन ट्यून करके देखोगे तो आपको समझ में आ जाएगा कि planet is still moving in the zodiac, though it is fixed at the time of your birth. But the problem with bhava is that bhava does not change. Only the rashis can change in the bha chakra, but the 12 bhavas will remain universally applicable for everyone, every native. So that is one very important thing to bear in mind. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll meet next time. Okay, Yash. Thank you for the
All
class.
okay.
And
Thank you, ma'am.
we'll go a little slowly. See, as you are going through the lectures, don't wait for completion of the course and then start analyzing the charts.
Hmm.
Whatever information you have by virtue of these lectures, start applying them on blank charts, on any charts that you have, on your own chart, your family members' charts, okay?
Hmm.
Because that is how you will become confident in your practice also.
Yes, ma'am.
तो आप डरिए मत कि मेरे पास कंप्लीट इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं है तो मैं क्यों चार्ट लेके बैठूं, क्यों एनालाइज करूं। ऐसा नहीं है,
Hmm.
आपको कुछ ना कुछ तो एप्लीकेशन वाला पार्ट करने को मिलेगा ना, किसी की भी चार्ट हो।
Hmm.
आप अभी राशियों में जो हमने अफ्लिक्शंस डिस्कस किए हैं उनको बैठ के क्रॉस चेक करिए। इवन इफ यू हैव अ पेशेंट whose birth chart you have, look at the afflictions in rashis. Even if they are falling in 6, 8, 12, of course, then they become extremely prone to affliction just by virtue of sitting in the 6, 8, and 12 bhavas. But just for the sake of practice, because it gives you confidence, start practicing on charts. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. Yes.
ठीक है?
I've got an interesting chart. एक patient है मेरा. He has got
जी।
psoriatic arthritis.
हम्म।
तो
ओके।
मतलब he उसको चलने ही नहीं होता. Like it is very difficult for him to move around because it's very very painful. So अभी I'll just like use whatever is there, जो मतलब whatever you have taught me today and the previous thing, and
या
maybe I'll just like let you know कि मेरे को क्या क्या मिला in that chart, and I'll share that chart with you,
यस
so you
यस,
can
शेयर इट इन द
also.
नेक्स्ट क्लास। यस यस, शेयर
Yes,
इट इन
yes,
द
I'll.
नेक्स्ट क्लास। ओके, we'll discuss it in the
Okay.
next class.
All
ठीक है?
right, all right. चलिए. All right.
ओके,
Okay. Yes.
चलो ठीक
Bye
है।
bye.
ओके।
Have a good day.
ओके, बाय बाय बाय, गुड डे।